Stop me if you think you've heard this before. Jews in Germany are being warned against wearing their kippas or skullcaps in public. Chilling, isn't it? While the feared lurch to the extreme right in the European elections fortunately did not materialise, there are parts of the continent where being Jewish could pose a threat to your safety. Indeed, a European-wide survey in December found 89% of Jews feel anti-Semitism has increased in their country over the past decade. Last year in Germany, violent attacks against Jewish people were up by more than 60% on the previous year. Now, this led to Government Commissioner for Anti-Semitism, Felix Klein, issuing the warning. This capitulation is shameful. It's thought much of the problem is fueled by the large numbers of immigrants arriving in Germany from mostly Muslim countries, where anti-Semitism runs rife and is even encouraged in the young. Someone once said, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." It is to be hoped Germany is listening this time.
Nobody could disagree with the spirit of what you've just said, Nick. About 25 years ago, I produced a report which was entitled "Anti-Semitism, a Very Light Sleeper," because at that point we all thought, this is history, it's all gone away, we all understand how terrible this is. But the research that we had done at the time suggested, and unfortunately it's turned out to be right, that this thing is still there. And it takes many forms, as we've seen. Across Europe, I think what you say is completely correct. This has to be called out, and people who are Jewish have to be supported. The issue which I have with simply saying that is that if you are Jewish, it's not as easy as that. I mean, it's, you know, it's fine for the rest of us to rhetorically go, we support you and all the rest of it. But we are not the people who on Shabbat have to walk to the synagogue wearing the kippah. And no matter how many times we come on telly and say, you know, don't do this, we're asking these people to be heroic, simply to carry out their own normal rituals. So I think we have to do something a little more than that. I don't quite know what it is. You know, some part of me says we need to do something showy, like on Shabbat. All men who might be Jewish should wear a skull cap, so that we're kind of saying to the bigots, distinguish which one of us is Jewish. And that's not going to solve the problem, but I think we shouldn't be leaving it to the victims to solve this problem.
And before I bring you in, Greg, I need to declare I actually sit on the advisory board of the CST, which is the organisation that provides security for anti-Semitism and monitors it. So before anybody thinks this is, let's just get that out there. Greg, what is this a role for government?
It must be. It must be. But it's not just government. It's got to be, but there's got to be. We cannot allow it to happen. We're all scared of what we're seeing in Germany, aren't we? I think because of what happened. In
not
the
just
30s.
Germany, though.
No, it's not just Germany. But
a special resonance for Germany.
Yeah, there is a special resonance for Germany. And I think for someone in authority to actually advise people, don't wear these because you'll get recognised, I think is terrifying. That does remind you of all those things you've read and seen about the 1930s in Germany. And we, the rest of us who aren't Jewish, have got to stand up and get out there and join the Jewish community and say we are not prepared to put up with it.
How do we do that, Greg?
I think we might require us to go on marches, it might require us to, but somehow we've got to say this, we are not going to put up with this.
Do you see the problem in Britain as well, Michelle?
Well, yeah, I mean, there'll be people watching this saying this isn't just to point you to a German problem. We've got it. People would argue about the Labour Party and the leadership there and all the rest of it, and we could get into that and we'll still be here in a week's time, I imagine. But I think it's quite interesting. It's absolutely terrifying that you would not be able to go about your daily business because of a religion that you hold. And for me, when you look at the statistics, and I was looking at how many synagogues and how many Jewish schools have a guarded police outside of them in Germany, something that we would take for granted, sending your children to school without having armed guards essentially at the gates. So I think what you've got to do is I think you've got to be honest about where is this problem coming from, because it is coming from different areas. It's the far right, it's the far right, it's the far left, and there is a lot of imported anti-Semitism in Germany at the moment. And I thought it was quite interesting, one of the biggest German newspapers, what they did in terms of solidarity, they actually printed on their front page, I think it was almost like, I don't want to say cut out and keep because that's a bit silly, but they actually did a kippah that they said to people, let's cut this out, let's have this in solidarity and actually show people that Jewish people should never hide away, and especially not in places like Germany.
That paper was Das Bild. Before I bring you in, Rachel, the Labour Party is saying, as you've mentioned it, Labour is fully committed to the support, defence and celebration of the Jewish community, is implacably opposed to anti-Semitism in any form. We reject any suggestion the party does not handle anti-Semitism complaints fairly and robustly, or that the party has acted unlawfully, and we will continue to cooperate fully with the EHRC. It is interesting to point out it is only the second political organisation ever to be referred to the EHRC, that particular Equality and Human Rights Commission, the other being the BNP. Was the government advisor...
One of my proudest moments, putting them out of business.
You helped do that, did you, the BNP?
You
were chairing it.
I issued the order.
You chaired it, of course. Oh, very interesting. Well, we need to get you on that after. Rachel, a government advisor or commissioner has a duty to protect its citizens, doesn't he? So if he thinks they can't wear the kippahs, they can't wear them. Yes or no?
I don't think he can issue a diktat to an entire faith as to how they express their faith, you know, in terms of symbols. And I think that... there was someone else in Germany who said, no, we must carry on wearing the yarmulke or the kippah, because we can't be cowed in the face of incipient fascistic tendencies. Michelle was saying, you know, we need to find out where this comes from, and I think in Germany, you know, it is the far right, but it is also who are reacting, they say, to the ingress of 1 million Muslims into Germany over the course of Merkel's premiership. But that's no excuse, and ditto, we have to go back to the Labour Party.
Well, let's be candid, that has imported some anti-Semitism from some of those countries. We must be honest about this.
They are claiming that it's Muslim anti-Semitism as well, which, I mean, as well as far-right Semitism. It's coming at them from both sides.
I've forgotten how key you were on this, Trevor, because you ran... It wasn't the EHRC in those days, was it?
It was the EHRC, and we essentially... Equality and Human Rights Commission, and essentially what we said to the British National Party is, you've got a constitution which says that people like me can't join, can't do that in this country.
Good.
They resisted, we took them to court and bankrupted them.
So when you see the Labour Party, only the second political organisation to ever be referred...
I think the Labour story is a different one, and probably not for this discussion. What I think is... the point I want to make about this, two things. One is... Rachel's slightly right to resist the point about Muslims, but because there have been 3 million plus Muslims in Germany for many, many years, but I think what this tells us is that there are different traditions within Islam, and some of those traditions, or some of the people who come from different backgrounds, as you say, Nick, do have a sort of ingrained hostility or idea about Jews, which they've grown up with, which is false. And that takes me to another point. If you look at the numbers, there's been a survey that asked people about the Holocaust, and what we found is that 33.1% of people in Europe have not heard of or only know a little about the Holocaust. So this is where I would start, to be honest. There are people who have come to Europe, and there are people who have grown up in Europe who have no idea of the weight of this issue. And I think if the rest of us want to do something, the first place we should start is make sure that every single person we know understands this isn't just a sort of neighbourhood dispute. This carries the weight of 6 million deaths.